created us without feelings. There is a nature that's necessary for the human family to procreate and to be. So to take that away from her, to say that his hijab is the lowering of his eyes and that's his great jihad, it's also her hijab. So I talk about the hijab of the eyes. What do you allow your eyes to see? And I'm talking about everything from magazines to TV to, God forbid, pornography, things that we see in public, what we allow our eyes to see, the hijab of the eyes. And then I speak about the hijab of the ears and what we allow ourselves to hear. And I believe that in that spiritual component, that not allowing ourselves to really listen to gossip, to things that could really move the soul to a path that should not be traveled. Excuse me. That the hijab of the ears is really significant, and that we have to be careful what is coming in to this body. What messages are we pulling in to our brain? And then in addition to that, I talk about the hijab of the tongue and what it is that we allow ourselves to say. This may sound a little crass and a little harsh, but I am one who publicly says, and you may have heard me say it if you've been to any lectures on hijab, that I find that it's probably better for Muslim women who are yappity, as we say in America, and very gossipy. I think that there's more, what's the word I'm looking for? I think that there's more decency and removing the hijab off of their heads and wrapping it around their tongues. For in there is more glory. And I say that with a smile, but my point is that it's not okay to look one way and be another way. Do we all have faults? Absolutely. Are we all vulnerable? Absolutely. Is Shaitan chipping away at every single one of us, left, right, and center? Absolutely. But there are some things that we can control. And what we say about people and how we say it about people is something that we certainly can control. So I believe that there's the spiritual hijab and then the physical hijab. So this is a question I pose to people often when I'm lecturing. I'll say, so, brothers and sisters, mostly in non-Muslim circles, when I go home and I come out of my physical hijab, am I out of my spiritual hijab? And then most of the time people say no. And so I say to them, then I offer you the spiritual hijab. You may not choose a physical hijab, but all of us, all human beings, irregardless, need to have a spiritual sense of hijab in what our eyes see, what our ears hear, and what our tongue speaks. And I believe that there's great glory in staying on Sirat al-Mustaqim when we have those faculties under control. I then explain to them that Muslim women do have a life, and that, we aren't these pented up human beings who long to, use a blow dryer and style our hair and wear makeup and so on and so forth, and that we are never dressed up, and that, the impression is that we're very drab and that we are very oppressed, and that we just don't think that there isn't a brain the size of a person who is not in hijab in the head, which is really bothersome to me. I also say that part of the reason that perception is there is, to be honest with you, Muslim women aren't speaking. And that the world would rather tell the story of a Muslimah whose hijab is imposed, who is oppressed, who has been made to be belittled, who does not drive, who has all of these exotic things that we see on TV, as opposed to the woman who could be in hijab or not in hijab, who is really making their mark on life and mark in the world. So, the other thing that I want to tell you is, because I am asked often, well, so how did you come to your hijab? Can you really tell us the personal story? I don't really think that it's necessary to put all of that out there. But I will share this part of the story with you. I do a lot of end-of-life work, and so one of the things that I do in the end-of-life work is I prepare the bodies, as Muslims need to, what we call the ghusl al-mayyit. That is something that I've been doing since I was 15. I've been doing it for 25 to 26 years, so now you can do the math and you know how old I am. And in that preparation, in the kafan, the shroud that we use, one of the things that we do is after we've washed the body and we begin to dress the body, we place the hijab on. And so for me, it became a symbol of empowerment because I like to make decisions myself. And so I thought to myself, rather than someone placing the hijab on me as I enter my grave, why don't I place it on myself? And again, this is my personal domain. It's just me as a human being. It's not something that necessarily any of you would agree with, but I'm coming from a personal perspective. For me, it was a position of empowerment that I would do what I needed to do for myself. Now, in that struggle of hijab, once you do decide to put it on, and let's say you really are in the public, let's say you are a judge and you're in the West, or let's say you are a physician and, you know, we have many well-educated Muslim women, whatever your profession may be. Let's say you're not even in a profession, but you're contemplating this idea of hijab, and it's really eating away at you. This is the other thing I think that sometimes brothers don't understand, how difficult the choice can be when you're struggling spiritually with this issue. You're wrestling with it. Do I not? If I'm not comfortable with it, do I take it off? What will happen with me if I do take it off? So on and so forth. There's so much emotion that comes with the decisions to wear hijab or not, especially in non-Muslim countries. So is it a struggle? I think it is in terms of how people will see you, but also it is an opportunity. And like anything else, when you rise to the occasion, people will see you from the inside out. And this is what I most love about hijab. While it equalizes the playing field, I feel that hijab pushes her inner beauty outward. It makes the outward beauty come in. And so that the focus isn't on the physical, but the focus is on her essence and who she is as a human being. And I think women want that. I believe that while women want to be beautiful and so on and so forth, there's a part of us, and I've heard so many, millions of women, and I can say literally millions of women who you've either read about or you've seen on TV or talk shows who say, I want to be understood. There is a very famous psychiatrist, neuropsychologist group team who say that of all of the things in the human condition that people want to research that's done on people, that the one aspect that keeps coming up is that people want to be understood. It's like a form of self-survival. People want to be understood. And so whether you are in hijab or whether you are not in hijab, whether you are male or whether you are female, there's this innate sense to be heard, to be understood, innate sense for the inside to come out. So I believe that, again, this is a very powerful concept in hijab. Some of the other issues, I have a lot of women who come to me just crying. I could be speaking at a conference, I'll come down off of the stage, and women are just lining up telling me about this struggle with hijab. And a lot of times they're saying, well, my family is the biggest barrier. Yes, your family may be the biggest barrier. That could be true. I know that it was a struggle for me with the inner family as well. But whenever we decide to do something, whether it's hijab or education or job or whatever it may be,